Are you wondering where to place your kids in Charlotte Mason's streams of history? Are you struggling to teach multiple students in multiple form levels? Today, we are addressing these things and other practical concerns and questions about Charlotte Mason's history lessons. Experience the joy and beauty of Charlotte Mason Picture Study lessons with Emily Kaiser's Picture Study portfolios from Simply Charlotte Mason. Everything you need for meaningful art appreciation, ready to go. Visit simplycharlottemason.com. Welcome to A Delectable Education, the podcast that spreads the feast of the Charlotte Mason method. I'm Emily Kaiser, and I'm here with
Liz Cottrell
and Nicole Williams.
And today we are wrapping up our series on history. We like to use this closing episode to address practical considerations and questions that we hear frequently. So, Nicole, why don't you get us started by talking about the most common question of homeschooling moms everywhere? Where can I combine my children to make it easier on myself?
One of the most practical and beautiful aspects of Charlotte Mason's history approach is how naturally it does allow for combining students, I think. In fact, history is one of the most unifying subjects of the curriculum, I think. It can be.
Yeah.
All of Form 1, so that's grade 1 through 3, can be combined with students either working in the 1B or 1A, as we've talked about before, on wherever the older sibling is. And then Forms 2 and 3, that is grades 4 through 8, 5 years. Those children can all be combined.
Yeah, for the ones that they have.
Yeah. For the ones that
for
they
the
have.
streams that they have,
the
right?
streams
They don't,
that they have, right. Because some of them aren't yet that first, the 2B isn't doing ancient history yet. But yes, where they can all be, that's 5 years of students that can be combined there. That's huge. And then Forms 4 through 6, so high school, they share the same stream. Moving through the final years of that rotation together. Right. So at no point should a family really have more than 3 groups going, you know, at the same time. Maybe more importantly, all students, regardless of form, are studying the same time period.
Right.
And whether they're reading stories from, you know, American settlements in Form 1 or tracing events across France and Britain, you know, later on, or even the contemporary European history, everyone's anchored in the same place and time.
Yes.
And that goes a long way. It creates a sense of shared learning, and your whole family can be immersed in the same historical moment or the same historical field trip. Like you guys
we
took
just
recently.
went to Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown because that was the period that we were all in this year.
Right. Everybody can have the same conversations over the dinner table or build the same forts for the same war in the backyard. You know, the kids are playing around these things. So just remember that children don't need to start at the beginning of history. They just need to jump in where the rest of the family is, and over time they will cycle back around.
I hear the objection, though, but 3 is still like way too many. But I think what is lost if we don't do that, right? We're going to be shortchanging people at every level because we won't be able to give them what is appropriate for them, right?
And it's not 3 hands-on.
Yes, that was my second part is, for all but those first form, like they're doing a lot of their lesson independently or with each other.
Right.
Without you, the mom.
Right. And I get kind of chill bumps when we do the first episode of these series of a subject.
Yeah.
Because you see that progression of what is happening. And part of that progression is that student getting independence and being able to start doing some of this stuff by themselves. And so I think that's a really important factor to keep in mind, like you said there, Liz.
Well, another question that we hear a lot is, where do I put my kids? We get this. Clearly, it's not a problem if you come with your 6-year-old. You just dive right in, you know, and that's so nice and easy. But that is not the reality of so many people who find Charlotte Mason later, or, you know, maybe they were doing a Charlotte Mason inspired or some other type of curriculum, and they're like, they know that history is the pivot. But how do I get there? Well, there was a note on the programs for kids to do, or students, I should say, to do the whole program that was appropriate for their age. Like, this is not a new thing. People were coming into the PUS at all ages too. So we do need to look at the child before us and we can do a lot as a teacher to remove obstacles to help them succeed in that program of work. We may need to make accommodations for, severe learning disabilities or something like that. That note that I'd read did specify for the normal child, which is their word for neurotypical, right? So when we have neuroatypical, we might need to make accommodations, but I think we can still give them the whole feast. If they're in Form 2, we might need to assign simpler books, but they can do all of the streams, right? So we're helping them step into that, but we're not taking away the richness or the breadth of the program for their age. Right. Did you have something to say about that?
Well, I don't know if you're already going to say
No, I'm going to go. I was going to go on and say that the work of the forms must be chronologically progressive. Those are not ADE's words. Those are not Emily Kaiser's words. Those are Charlotte Mason's words. And so we have to move forward from the last period of history. And I know this can become a jumbled mess depending on what we have done before and different people's ideas about, every curriculum out there, Charlotte Mason or not, has an idea about the history progression. So it can make it really jumbled if we were in a specific ancient history in a different time in American history. And then we move forward. We need to go past our modern. I think the modern is the benchmark that we go by because that is the one that is specifically chronological, right?
Meaning versus ancient.
Versus ancient, because the ancient history, there is some overlap since we're looking at culture by culture, right? Generally, the Greeks happened, but Greece was still around, guys, when Rome was, So, in more or less degree of power, but they did war against each other. A Greek came and invaded Italy and wanted to, anyway, that's a whole thing. All that I've learned from reading Charlotte Mason history. But I think we need to look at where were we in our modern stream and go forward from there. And then again, as I mentioned before, the ancient history is tied to those specific years of the modern. So we have to do the ancient again. And sometimes that does get messy, but that would be my best advice.
So this is kind of what I was about to say, too, because I've encountered many families where their children have only been studying ancient. So then so they want to know where should they start with the American or whatever. So I would just say that if last year you studied ancient Egypt, then you would begin at 1650 to 1800. Right?
Right, because ancient Egypt is in the first year of the rotation.
And so that would be the Greek history that year.
So you're moving forward in the ancient if they had not done any American history. Yeah.
And if they just studied the Middle Ages and Renaissance, because I find this a really common thing, the family has just been only in that time period. So then I just say, well, then you're perfectly set up to jump into, 1000 to 1650, and you'll be studying ancient Egypt during that time. So I just thought that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the thing to just calm our nerves about all the messy jumps into history is not a skill subject, right? There are going to be gaps, and we need to not worry about them, right? There were only supposed to be no gaps for math and grammar, foreign and English, right? Yeah. So all other subjects, it is okay. There's always going to be gaps.
And she even said it's okay to skip a century or two.
Yeah,
but the
you're going
big
forward.
thing is you got to keep going forward.
I think your video, too, just as a reminder that you have a video that
describes all of the rotations and how to move through.
I think that would help
yes.
people to be able to approach it with whatever their specific situation is and watch that.
Yeah, and just remember, they're going to get it all again because we cycle through history like 3 total times, over the course of 12 years. So even if your child is coming in that middle rotation, they're still going to get it again. And they can get a whole one if they're doing this in high school. So if they feel a lack of knowledge, from something they read, that is all the better because that is what spurs anybody on. Like, I don't know about that. I want to.
Right.
And they're going to pick up books.
Curiosity.
Even beyond their 12 years in your home.
Yeah.
And what other questions do we have?
Well, I was just thinking if you're bringing several students in to this method, and maybe they've all been in different places. I run into this a lot. So what I usually recommend is that you work with the oldest student because they have the less time ahead of them to do what maybe has been lacking. And it just makes more sense if they've only got 3 or 4 years left. Let's go with where that child is, and the others can fall into line. And I do find that a lot of times moms are concerned that their kids are going to be confused studying 3 different time periods in history. but that is not my experience with actually teaching children. No. They relish it, and they love the changes and the differences, and they love making the connections between the different countries. Like, oh my goodness, this was happening in Italy at the same time as, whatever. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And then you did mention about combining children and having them read together, older children.
Yeah.
And younger children together. And I think that it is always a temptation for us as moms to do what's easier for us. We would love to have all our kids in the same book or something like that. Mm-hmm. But they each need what is going to be important for where they're at in life. The older children maybe will be able to read the same book as a little bit younger children, but on the timetable, they're going to have different lengths of lessons. Mm-hmm. And so just keep in mind that the older child is going to get to write his narrations, whereas a younger child will not be doing that necessarily. Mm-hmm. So that kind of helps you balance your whole timetable. Like, maybe the book is used together, but the older child has the challenge of having to write the narration, yes. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that note about combining, both levels in the same form in a homeschool room always also had the note that the children in the upper part of the form had more requirements, more expectations on their work. They were to do more.
And then the other thing about combining kids that is a frequent thing is that the kids would rather study independently. They don't want to study with their siblings, right? And actually related to this is that moms often don't want to give up reading to all the children together. They love that camaraderie thing. And I get it. I do it. There is a whole day.
And they just love the
when
books
you can
themselves.
read other books. Right. So go ahead and read them yourself before your kids do, so you know what to talk about with them. And there are other things we can read about outside of school together and still have that camaraderie. Mm-hmm. But it does help our children so much to have combined lessons and maybe the younger student can't really read a whole lot yet, and the older one is going to have to carry more of the weight. They have to learn to get along at home if they're going to get along with people in life in general. And just to remind that throughout life, they're going to be encountering people everywhere they work and study and live who are annoying, just like their siblings are, and that have less skills than they do or are more inefficient, and all of those exact same problems. And that this is an opportunity to strengthen their character for what they're inevitably going to be dealing with in their life ahead of them. Mm-hmm. So,
yeah. Well, one other thing I wanted to touch on is how parents or teachers can assess the progress their students are making. I think that's just always back, especially for homeschoolers, at the back of our mind, like, is my child doing enough?
Yeah.
So as I would just have some questions that you could ask yourselves to reflect on that. As they move up in the forms, are they showing their own thoughts? Are they developing their own opinions? Are your students making connections between people and events throughout history, or in between their different streams, or even their different subjects? Are they, this reminds me, this character in our literature book reminds me of this person that we read about in history, or vice versa, something like that. And ultimately, do they care? Mm-hmm. Have they made a connection with a person from history? It doesn't have to be with every single person, every single lesson, right? Are they making relationships? Do they get riled up at injustice that they read about? My kids do. Man, some of our best conversations have been after reading hard things in books. Or do they rejoice with a person's success that they read about? I think that is really the highest mark of progress, because that's meeting our objectives of interesting them in history and helping them develop relationships with the past. Yeah. So did you have anything else to share with us, Mom, before we...
I'm sure I'll think of something after we quit, but that's all I had in my mind at the moment.
Okay, well, we'll be right back. When it comes to teaching history the Charlotte Mason way, Living Book Press offers beautifully transcribed editions of beloved living history books. Explore timeless favorites like Our Island Story, This Country of Ours, or foundational spines like Builders of Our Country and The Story of Canada. Plus, almost every physical book includes a free digital edition, perfect for homeschooling on the go. Unlike scanned reprints, Living Book Press carefully transcribes each title, making them easier to read aloud and study together. And because Living Book Press is run by homeschoolers, these editions are thoughtfully designed with your family's educational needs in mind. You can also experience Charlotte Mason's original writings through professionally narrated audiobooks, ideal for busy homeschooling parents or listening together as a family. With over 400 living books across subjects including history, geography, science, literature, and more, available in digital, softcover, and hardcover formats, Living Book Press helps you easily find just the right resources for your homeschool. Visit livingbookpress.com and use code ADE to save 10% on everything. Charlotte Mason said, "We cannot live sanely unless we know that other people's are as we are, with a difference. That their history is as ours, with a difference. We may not delay to offer such a liberal and generous diet of history to every child in the country as shall give weight to his decisions, consideration to his actions, and stability to his conduct." We hope that you have been inspired to give such a diet of history to your students. Next, we turn our attention to literature, a subject that goes hand in hand with history. So please join us next time as we continue to spread the feast of the Charlotte Mason Method. If you benefited from this conversation, please like and subscribe. We hope our discussion serves to equip and encourage you as we seek to explain the Charlotte Mason Method. You can find the show notes in the video description or by visiting adelectableeducation.com/episodes. There, you'll find the links and quotes we mentioned in today's episode. We are so grateful for our loyal Patreon supporters who help make this show possible. If you'd like to partner with us in our work here at A Delectable Education, you can join our Patreon community and receive exclusive and early content as our thank you for your monthly support. Find out more at patreon.com/adelectableeducation. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time.